Hi, and welcome to Knit Pickers PEI in beautiful downtown Mayfield. Today we are going to cover a new cast-on technique called the Latvian cast-on. Now the Latvian cast-on is very similar to the long-tail cast-on, but it pairs up in series of 2 stitches. So if you're doing a 2x2 rib or something similar to that, it pairs up beautifully with your 2 columns of knit stitches and then your 2 columns of purl stitches. It's got a nice bit of stretch to the edge, but it's firm enough that it'll hold its shape as well. So I think you're going to enjoy this. It's a pretty little edge, and I'll show you what it looks like. Shall we get started? So here's the sweater project I've been working on using the Latvian cast-on for my edge. And as you can see, if you take a really close look, there's a little band right here. So these 2 columns of knit stitches pair up with the little band across. And on the purl side, those 2 rows of purl stitches pair up with this little band. So each column is paired up. And it's just a pretty edge. It's got a fair amount of stretch, but it's not so stretchy that it'll be sloppy. So, shall we take a look at how this is done? You'll really enjoy it, and it's super easy. So when you're doing either the long tail or the Latvian cast-on, you do want to measure out a certain length of yarn for the number of stitches that you're going to be casting on. And remember, for both the long tail and the Latvian cast-on, you're not only casting on a row, but you're also knitting your first row of stitches. So that means you do need a fair length of yarn to do your cast on. And if you're not familiar with how to calculate how much yarn you're going to need, be sure to check the video in the link in the show notes below. So a lot of people start out their cast on by doing a little slip knot. They just do the slip knot, pop that onto the needle, and then start their cast on. I do go over this technique in the long tail cast on video, but take a peek at how I do it. I prefer to form a triangle with my fingers. So I've got my forefinger and my thumb on the inside, and I'm just gripping the yarn at the bottom here, and it forms a little triangle. And what I do is I press down on the bar in the center, and I come under the thumb. Whoop. Try that again. Press down on the bar in the center, come under the thumb, and over the forefinger, through the loop, and I've cast on my first 2 stitches. So doing that, it eliminates the little gap that you can sometimes get when you use a slip knot as your first cast on stitch. And from here on in, when you're casting on, you're only going to be casting on 1 stitch. So let's try that one more time. Form your triangle, down through the top bar, underneath the yarn on the thumb, over the yarn on the forefinger, through the loop, and snug it up. So there are your first 2 stitches. From here on in, this is my triangle. So the first stitch in the pair of stitches for the Latvian cast-on is done exactly as you do for the long tail cast-on. And for the long tail cast-on, both your thumb and your forefinger are coming in to the inside of the triangle, and then you're turning your work. You're going to pick up the yarn on the outside of your thumb and the yarn over your forefinger, bring it through the loop, and snug it up, and there's your stitch. So we'll try that one more time. Form your triangle with your forefinger and your thumb going into your triangle. Go underneath the yarn on your thumb and over the yarn on your forefinger, through the loop, and snug it up. So that is the first stitch of the pair of stitches for the Latvian cast on. So the little twist that you do to do the Latvian cast on is for your second stitch, instead of having your forefinger and your thumb on the inside of your triangle of yarn here, you are going to take your thumb and move it to the outside. So from the inside to the outside and around that way. And then you pick up the yarn coming on the inside leg of your thumb. So under that yarn, over the yarn on your forefinger, through the loop, and whoops, through the loop and snug it up. And you can see right here, right there, I've created that little bar. So that's going to pair my two stitches together. So if I'm doing a column of knit stitches, it pairs up with that bar. So let's try that one more time. We're going to form our triangle with our forefinger to the inside of the triangle and the thumb to the inside of the triangle. Give it a twist, pick up the yarn on the outside of my thumb, under and over the yarn on my forefinger, through the loop, and that is stitch number 1 of the 2-stitch repeat for the Latvian cast on. For step number 2, instead of having my thumb on the inside of my triangle, I move my thumb to the outside of the triangle and bring it in that way. And then I go underneath the yarn on the inside of my thumb, not the outside as I did for the long tail, but the inside of my thumb, under, over the yarn on my forefinger, through the loop, and snug it up. And there again, you can see the little bar that I've created. So you can really get quite quick at this. So first step, typical long tail cast on, thumb is to the inside of my triangle. I go to the outside of my thumb, under the yarn, over the yarn on my forefinger, through the loop, snug it up, and then I move my thumb from the inside of my triangle to the outside of my triangle and in. So from the inside to the outside, pick up the yarn on the inside of my thumb, under, over, through the loop, and snug it up. So thumb is on the inside, under, over, through the loop, snug it up. Thumb is on the outside and in, so instead of inside out, outside in. Pick up that yarn here, under, over, through the loop, and snug it up. So you continue working in pairs like that until you've cast on all the stitches you want. Now do keep in mind, when you turn your work and you start to knit that first row, you're working on your wrong side, because whether you're working with a Latvian cast on or a long tail cast on, you've not only cast on, but you've also knit your first row. So in this case, what I would do is I would start out my knitting with 2 stitches of purl, 2 stitches of knit, 2 purl, 2 knit, 2 purl. Then I would turn my work. I'm now on my right side, and I would do 2 knit, 2 purl, 2 knit, 2 purl, 2 knit, because we've already knit that first row when we cast on. And that is as simple as it is to do a Latvian cast on. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Give the Latvian cast on a try. It's just a little bit different. It's a very pretty edge, and I think you'll enjoy working with it. Happy knitting!